Africa Prime, brought to you by Jameson's Select Reserve.
One of the world's greatest inspirational entrepreneurs, Richard Branson, is in South Africa launching yet another book. This time it's Screw Business as Usual, and he joins us on Africa Prime. Thank you so much, Richard, for joining us. Great to have you on the program. The reason you're in South Africa, launching yet another book, Screw Business as Usual. Really interesting title to the book. Your inspiration behind this book is essentially the change in the form of capitalism as we know it, and to embody not only profits, but to ensure that we also have social and environment considerations. Give us your view in terms of what actually inspired you to write this book.
Well, strangely, I think it was actually inspired from my trips to Africa. Maybe not strangely, but anyway. And maybe 10 years ago, some very sad trips. I mean, just visiting hospitals in South Africa and just seeing enormous quantities of adverts for funeral parlours outside, and then going into the waiting rooms and seeing people queuing up to wait to go into the beds of people who died the day before, principally from AIDS. And it just seemed so wrong that when antiretroviral drugs had already been discovered, that people were being allowed to die for an absolute pittance. I mean, the pills were costing very, very small amount of money, and so just a feeling. Look, if politicians are not grasping the nettle, and social workers were unable to grasp the nettle, then maybe business leaders should play a lead in issues like this. And at the time, I wrote to Tubham and Becky, and we had a dialogue, and hopefully something positive came out of that. And things are by no means perfect now, but I think I think they're a lot better than they were a few years ago.
Well, with regards to the financial crisis, I think it's shaking a lot of things up with regards to perceptions of risk and where we should be putting and prioritising, especially the monetary gains that we see from business. One thing that has been quite obvious, and especially at COP17, which occurred in Durban this year, is the fact that the crisis in Europe is now starting to dry up funds towards renewable energy and towards protecting the environment. How does this then fit in? Is this a theme that perhaps fits into your book, that organisations and the private sector need to be focused on ensuring that they put money, significant amounts of money, into the environment, into climate change and into social interaction, and not only think about the bottom line and of course revenue?
Look, in a nutshell, what Screw Business as Usual is saying is that entrepreneurs, they must build their businesses, and in Africa that's critical. By building their businesses they can create jobs, that's critical, and they must use their businesses to go out there and do things better than people have done before. But they must also use, and this is the extra added element, their entrepreneurial skills to go out and tackle some of the big problems in the world that politicians may not be tackling. The environment is an extremely good example of one where politicians ought to be setting a framework for us all to work in, which will make sure that the world does not heat up. They're not doing that, and therefore it's up to us business leaders to get on and do the job ourselves. So, we've set up something called the Carbon War Room with the aim of working with business to get 25 gigatons of carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere. If we can get 25 gigatons of carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere, we can balance the atmosphere's temperature, and what we're trying to do is working with the airline industry, working with the shipping industry, working with cities, find ways of getting carbon out that do not actually damage industry. So with the airline industry, we've got a scheme to try to come up with alternative fuels that are clean fuels that we can power our planes by. And we invest all the profits from our airline industry into developing clean fuels, and we've got some, I think, very exciting clean fuels that I think 5 or 6 years from now our planes will be flying on. And then we've got to try to get the rest of the industry to do the same, so that the airline industry can become a clean industry.
And that's just one of the brilliant examples. I know that it's something that is close to your heart because it is one of your many businesses. You also talk of a new form of capitalism and embracing a new form of capitalism. Do you think that it can be done by the private sector going forward? You're talking about a new form of entrepreneur that is actually coming to the fore, but do you think the existing entrepreneurs, the existing business leaders such as yourselves are starting to think out of the box and think differently?
I think we have to think differently. Capitalism is a system that is the only system that's proved to work, but it has its flaws, and the flaws are that quite considerable wealth go to a few people, and therefore with that wealth goes enormous responsibility, and that's the responsibility to get out and use that wealth to to tackle the big problems of the world and make sure that we get on top of those problems, and effectively give capitalism a good name rather than the bad name I think it's got as a result of of some greedy bankers almost bringing the world to its knees, and I think that every company, I mean the small companies, bigger, medium-sized companies, big companies, everybody can play their part.
With regards to bringing, and I know that you've also said this, with regards to work and purpose and making it one. So in other words, ensuring that your business strategy has a purpose at the end of the day to initiate change. Is it easy to do this? Do you think that you need to be an immense innovator to ensure that you have a purpose with regards to the business that you're embarking on?
I think that what you've got to do is involve everybody who works for a company, and everybody who works for a company want to work for a company that's making a difference. They don't just want to work for a money-making machine. They don't just want to work for a few shareholders. They want to feel that that the company they're working for, they can be incredibly proud of that company because it's getting out there and making a difference in the world. And very small companies can play their part in making that difference. And I think the reason I say that it doesn't actually cost companies a lot of money to do this is I think that if you can create a brand that people really believe in and are really proud of working for, they'll work that little bit harder, and it'll actually pay to do good.
With regards to the 8 key themes within your book, something that really struck me: power to the people, and you say that everyone must and can do business differently. How quickly can we actually start to see and experience a change? Is it going to be pushed forward by governments? Is it going to be pushed forward by the needs of the people on the ground, that the consumer demands a different type of business model?
Well, I think the peaceful demonstrations, the Wall Street demonstrations around the world, show that people are demanding a different kind of model. They are demanding that that business is a force for good. That business is something that people can be proud of working for companies again, so I think it's up to business leaders to listen and just get on and do the job.
And this is the other point where you say stop saving the world, start reinventing it, and shifting from charity to putting energy into reinvention and innovation. We've seen so many changes occurring on a global level. We're starting to see the shift occurring quite dramatically. What kind of new trends do you foresee going forward? It's quite easy to say this. Do you see any specific trend within the business arena, something that we haven't even envisioned or imagined as yet?
Well, one thing we found effective at Virgin, through our foundation Virgin Unite, is setting up not-for-profit organisations to tackle some of the world's problems. So, I mean, here in Africa, we set up an organisation called the Elders, which is headed up by Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Tutu, and it's also got people like Kofi Annan and Graça Machel and other wonderful African leaders on board. And the Elders go into conflict regions to try to resolve conflicts, although they're elders, they work harder than any of us, so this organisation, it's run like a company, but its profit motive is resolving conflicts, not the bottom line, and we've done the same in the global warming arena. We're trying to set up a Centre for Disease Control here in Africa with the South African government with the aim stopping diseases, not just the bottom line.
And also unlikely marriages, which is quite interesting because we're starting to see the private sector really teaming up with governments across the board, and perhaps this is a trend that really occurs on the African continent because you can't really do business here without having a very strong relationship with a lot of the governments as well. Is it a strong marriage? Can it be one that is everlasting and long-lasting? Because we know that as leadership changes, then that could also create quite a bit of conflict with a lot of the contracts that have been written between the private sector and government. Have you found this a challenge?
I pause because I mean the Centre for Disease Control that we wanted to set up here in South Africa. We were going to announce it the day that Thabo Mbeki stepped down, and then we were assured that it would happen very quickly after Jacob Zuma took over. And we are slightly frustrated it's taking longer than we thought. So generally speaking, I suspect it is easier for business just to get on and do the job and not necessarily partner with governments, which is a pity because I think it'd be nice to be able to do both. But often it's easier just to say, screw it, just do it and get on and do the job.
And that's why screw business as usual, right? And with regards to the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship, and really with a very strong aim to create jobs here in South Africa, and it's been very successful. Would you take the same model and move it into the rest of the African continent, given the fact that you were saying a little earlier, the inspiration behind the book is seeing some of the issues that challenges Africa?
Well, I've just come from Nairobi, and they were crying out for a Branson School of Entrepreneurship there, and I suspect most African cities would benefit from it. It's just a matter of how much energy we've personally got to do it everywhere. We just opened one in Jamaica, and the students there are loving it and benefiting, I think, enormously from it, and it's working great here in Joburg. But obviously, ideally, the model should be rolled out on a global basis. And basically, it's just taking young people who've got a good business idea and helping them, giving them some mentoring, giving them some advice and helping them just get that business established. And that's what's going to generate the future jobs in Africa.
And with regards to the Branson Centre of Entrepreneurship here in South Africa, I mean, how did you set it up? What kind of model did you use? You were saying that if you've got enough energy on your end, clearly it is something that needs a lot of attention and requires a lot of skills. How did you set this up, and what kind of people did you put in place to ensure that the right mentoring was occurring?
Well, fortunately, we've got a great team of people who run it, but we've also got lots of business leaders from around the world who are willing to give up some of their time to help help the people at the Branson School. And so today I brought down business leaders from Australia, from America, from the UK, who are going to come and talk to the students and sorry, a lot of dust from the roads of
Johannesburg.
Kenya, actually.
Yeah, Kenya.
I think that we have great people running it. But I think bringing outside people in to talk to the students and mentor the students is very important. And what we've done is we haven't gone for people who haven't started business at all. We're now taking on people who've just have had the courage to actually start something, and then just helping them get over that quite difficult stage of taking the basic business to its sort of second step.
We're going to a very short break. More with Sir Richard Branson when we return.